Chapter 8 of Moonfleet. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Simon Evers. Moonfleet by J. Mead Faulkner. Chapter 8. The Landing. Let my lamp at midnight hour be seen in some high lonely tower. Milton. Maskew got ugly looks from the men, and sour words from the wives, as he went up through the village that afternoon, for all knew what he had done, and for many days after the auction he durst not show his face abroad. Yet Damon of Ringstave, and some others of the landers' men, who made it their business to keep an eye upon him, said that he had been twice to Weymouth of evenings, and held converse there with Mr. Luckham of the excise, and with Captain Henning, who commanded the troopers then in quarters on the Noath. And by degrees it got about, but how I do not know, that he had persuaded the revenue to strike hard at the smugglers, and that a strong posse was to be held in readiness to take the landers in the act the next time they should try to run a cargo. Why Maskew should so put himself about to help the revenue I cannot tell, nor did anyone ever certainly find out. But some said 'twas out of sheer wantonness, and a desire to hurt his neighbours, and others that he saw what an apt place this was for landing cargoes, and wished first to make a brave show of zeal for the excise, and afterwards to get the whole of the contraband trade into his own hands. However that may be, I think he was certainly in league with the revenue men, and more than once I saw him on the manor terrace with a spyglass in his hand, and guessed that he was looking for the lugger in the offing. Now word was mostly given to the lander, by safe hands, of the night on which a cargo should be run, and then in the morning or afternoon the lugger would come just near enough the land to be made out with glasses, and afterwards lie off again out of sight till nightfall. The nights chosen for such work were without moon, but as still as might be, so long as there was wind enough to fill the sails. And often the lugger could be made out from the beach, but sometimes 'twas necessary to signal with flares, though they were used as little as might be. Yet after there had been a long spell of rough weather, and a cargo had to be run at all hazards, I have known the boats come in even on the bright moonlight, and take their risk. For 'twas said the excise slept sounder round us than anywhere in all the Channel. These tales of Maskew's doings failed not to reach Elzevir, and for some days he thought best not to move, though there was a cargo on the other side that wanted landing badly. But one evening, when he had won at backgammon, and was in an open mind, he took me into confidence, setting down the dice-box on the table, and saying, "There is word come from the shippers that we must take a cargo, for that they cannot keep the stuff by them longer at St. Malo. Now with this devil at the manor prowling round, I dare not risk the job on Moonfleet beach, nor yet stow the liquor in the vault. So I have told the Bonaventure to put her nose into this bay to-morrow afternoon, that Maskew may see her well, and then to lie out again to sea, as she has done 100 times before. But instead of waiting in the offing, she will make straight off up channel to a little strip of shingle underneath Hoare Head." I nodded, to show I knew the place, and he went on, "Men used to choose that spot in good old times to beach a cargo before the passage to the vault was dug, and there is a worked-out quarry they call Pygrove's Hole, not too far off up the down, and choked with brambles, where we can find shelter for 100 kegs. So we will be under Hoare Head at 5 to-morrow morn with the pack-horses. I wish we could be earlier, for the sun rises thereabout, but the tide will not serve before." It was at that moment that I felt a cold touch on my shoulders, as of the fresh air from outside, and thought beside I had a whiff of salt seaweed from the beach. So round I looked to see if a door or window stood ajar. The window was tight enough, and shuttered to boot, but the door was not to be seen plainly for a wooden screen which parted it from the parlour, and was meant to keep off draughts. Yet I could just see a top corner of the door above the screen, and thought it was not fast. So up I got to shut it, for the nights were cold, but coming round the corner of the screen found that 'twas closed, and yet I could have sworn I saw the latch fall to its place as I walked towards it. Then I dashed forward, and in a trice had the door open and was in the street. But the night was moonless and black, and I neither saw nor heard aught stirring, save the gentle sea-wash on Moonfleet beach beyond the salt meadows. Elzevir looked at me uneasily when I came back. "What ails thee, boy?" said he. "I thought I heard someone at the door," I answered. "Did you not feel a cold wind, as if it was open?" "It is but the night is sharp, the spring sets in very chill. Slip the bolt and sit down again." And he flung a fresh log on the fire that sent a cloud of sparks crackling up the chimney and out into the room. "Elzevir," I said, "I think there was one listening at the door, and there may be others in the house. So before we sit again, let us take candle and go through the rooms to make sure none are prying on us." He laughed and said, "'Twas but the wind that blew the door open, but that I might do as I pleased." So I lit another candle, and was for starting on my search, but he cried, "Nay, thou shalt not go alone." And so we went all round to the house together, and found not so much as a mouse stirring. He laughed the more when we came back to the parlour. "'Tis the cold has chilled thy heart and made thee timid of that skulking rascal of the manor. Fill me a glass of Ararat milk, and one for thyself, and let us to bed." I had learned by this not to be afraid of the good liquor, and while we sat sipping it, Elzevir went on. "There is a fortnight yet to run, and then you and I shall be cut adrift from our moorings. It's a cruel thing to see the doors of this house closed on me, where I and mine have lived a century or more, but I must see it. Yet let us not be too cast down, but try to make something even of this worst of throes." I was glad enough to hear him speak in this firmer strain, for I had seen what a sore thought it had been for these days past that he must leave the Why Not, and how it had often made him moody and downcast. "We'll have no more of innkeeping," he said. "I've been sick and tired of it this many a day, and care not now to see men abuse good liquor and addle their silly pates to fill my purse. And I have something, boy, put snug away in Dorchester town that will give us bread to eat and beer to drink, even if the throws run still deuce ace. But we must seek a roof to shelter us when the Why Not is shut, and 'tis best we leave this Moonfleet of ours for a season, till Maskew finds a rope's end long enough to hang himself withal. So, when our work is done to-morrow night, we'll walk out along the cliff to Worth, and take a look at a cottage there that Damon spoke about, with a walled orchard at the back and fuchsia hedge in front. 'Tis near the Lobster Inn, and has a fine prospect of the sea, and if we live there, we will leave the vault alone a while, and use this Pygrove's Hole for storehouse till the watch is relaxed." I did not answer, having my thoughts on other things, and he tossed off his liquor, saying, "Thou'rt tired, so let's to bed, for we shall get little sleep to-morrow night." It was true that I was tired, and yet I could not get to sleep, but tossed and turned in my bed for thinking of many things, and being vexed that we were to leave Moonfleet. Yet mine was a selfish sorrow, for I had little thought for Elzevir and the pain that it must be to him to quit the Why Not. Nor yet was it the grief of leaving Moonfleet that so troubled me, although that was the only place I had ever known, and seemed to me then, as now, the only spot on earth fit to be lived in. But the real care and canker was that I was going away from Grace Maskew, for since she had left school I had grown fonder of her, and now that it was difficult to see her, I took the more pains to accomplish it, and met her sometimes in Manor Woods, and more than once, when Maskew was away, had walked with her on Weatherbeech Hill. So we bred up a boy and girl affection, and must needs pledge ourselves to be true to one another, not knowing what such silly words might mean. And I told Grace all my secrets, not even excepting the doings of the contraband, and the Mohune vault, and Blackbird's locket, for I knew all was as safe with her as with me, and that her father could never rack aught from her. Nay, more, her bedroom was at the top of the gabled wing of the manor house, and looked right out to sea, and one clear night, when our boat was coming late from fishing, I saw her candle burning there, and next day told her of it. And then she said that she would set a candle to burn before the panes on winter nights, and be a leading light for boats at sea. And so she did, and others beside me saw and used it, calling it Maskew's match, and saying